So do nothing parenting is really about, uh, understanding that how naturally people were looking after children, and how it has changed completely. So basically, traditionally, nobody ever looked after children. They just grew up. But today, because of a certain kind of process that we have gone through, we have forgotten how to look after children. And I think primarily it is because of the schools that children are sent to school right from 4 or 5 years. It's starting from 3 years. And with that, the children stopped absorbing, imbibing the natural way in which their parents were looking after them. No? So that intergenerational passing on of knowledge, uh, in a way, stopped completely. And in one sense, actually, biologically, all the living beings are, equipped to nurture. Whether they are father or mother. It's not just so because the human beings' first learning is nurturing only, because what they experience is what they learn. So, right, when you're born, your parents are looking after you, they're nurturing you. And in traditional societies, it went up to 7 years, 7, 8, 10 years, where the children were always with parents, at least in the first 3, 4 years. But today the scenario is very different, where parents are working, no other, mostly hardly anybody at home. So a certain kind of rooting that was required for a child is missing today. So that is the main reason. So there has to be a reorganization of, people, space, context, to get back that natural process of, imbibing and becoming a true parent. So that is today completely missing.
Exactly prompted you to do this at this point of time?
Actually, lockdown for me is a very interesting situation, where people have stopped moving, and I think it is, for nature at least, it has been very good. And I think for children also this will be very good. Children can stay in one place, and that is what is actually required for a child. A child should stay static in one place for at least in the 4 5 years of their first 4 5 years, because they should really root themselves, familiarize themselves. uh, for a cognitive need, it is important. The way the senses should root to the surroundings and learn to be present. Now that kind of situation is being provided by this lockdown. So I think, but for parents it may be slightly difficult, because they are not no longer used to spending time with children. Not only that, the this nuclear family has also created more stress on parents, because they are continuously with one child, or maximum two children. And so there is a strange situation right now happening, because the child is getting too much of attention, and it is really not good for children at all. They don't need attention. What they need is freedom. What they need is certain kind of trust, and a care. But this should happen only in the background. It shouldn't come in the forefront, where the child is suffocated, or with your love and care and all that. Children don't need that. Actually, children need that kind of a space, freedom, and to really explore the world autonomously. That's the, yeah.
But generally we say that if we don't do anything, nothing actually happens. We need to do something to make things happen. So how can you say that do nothing parenting will work?
You see, actually, do nothing parenting is really about understanding the way nature functions. Nature is growing. Nature, there is nothing that needs to be done in order for nature to grow. So this do nothing parenting, this term is actually inspired by Fukuoka's do nothing farming, where he has proved that you just leave things alone and it will start growing. So do nothing farming works under the principle that nature is already doing things. You don't have to do anything about it. So exactly like this, if you go into any of the rural travel situations, children are never looked after by anybody. There's no There's no parenting there. Children are just growing. So, so this notion of doing is a new phenomena. I mean, it's like learning. Learning is a natural thing. Learning happens. But now we have started learning. So everywhere we have created that effort. Effort is not required actually for nature. Nature is just functioning. It is there. It is happening, and we have now mistakenly wanting to do things with them.
But do you mean to say that children don't need adult guidance, their supervision at all?
See, the way nature functions is not with that kind of guidance. Nature already equips the child with the whole wherewithal to grow. But of course, human child needs a certain kind of child rearing, but that is exactly opposite to what modern people are doing. What children actually, suppose you are helping a child, that's what modern people are doing, then the child gets the subconscious idea that the child is not capable. So at the subconscious level, the message that the child gets with everything that modern people are doing is that they are incapable, they are not yet enough. So a deficiency paradigm is what is established in modern systems. Where the whole premise is that the other do not know, or the other is weak, the other is need to be controlled. So if you take it nature, so nature needs to be controlled. That's a modern man's idea. And poor people needs to be helped. I mean, this, tribals needs to be converted. So this whole game of changing the other is a modern phenomena, and this is rooted in the idea that you are superior. This is a damage actually. The feeling that you are superior is actually a damaged mind's quality. So if you find the modern people talking about, they're always in competition with everything else. They would say they are better than animals. Animals are not competing with you. I mean, I don't know how they got this idea that they want to constantly prove that they are better than animals. I mean, every third fellow that, stresses the idea that, most scientists I'm talking about. So what is this notion that is entered, which makes them constantly tell that we are better than animals? This is a very strange kind of thing. It's like telling apple is telling mango that I'm better. I mean, everything is required for nature. There's no hierarchy in nature. Everything has its own place. It's like the 5 fingers. Each finger is required. So this is a anthropocentric notion that has come into the modern man's mind, which actually that exactly is the damage of modern man. Modern man, is alienated from the true being of nature. Otherwise, he wouldn't even begin to teach, because in nature there is no teaching. See, there is no word for teaching in any of the traditional languages. None of the oral languages has the word teaching. It's a very modern invention. Whereas learning, also people don't say, but learning is so natural, because it's like, do we constantly say we are breathing? We don't, because that's the nature. And see, learning is the fundamental basis in which existence is happening. Without learning, every being is learning. Every being is learning. And learning is not a choice. Learning is that enables the movement of life, So that's the...
So what are the issues you see with modern parenting that you suggest a do nothing parenting as an alternative?
No, you see, the thing is that actually what has happened is that the parent is under a lot of insecurity and anxiety about future, because of work, because of money. This anxiety and is actually again modern mind's psychological damage. Because see, in life, the message that life gives every living being is that there is abundance. That is the reason in traditional communities, they never thought of tomorrow. They were happy with today. But the modern man convinced him that that is not the way. You have to be worried of tomorrow. So the worry was actually instilled in all of us, so that we are anxious of tomorrow. Whereas this anxiety is more of a psychological phenomenon, you know. So see, this is what has happened in modern man, that he has prioritized his mind's needs than his body's needs, you know. So the mind has been rewired to worry about things that the body doesn't have any wire, any worry, you know. They are worried about. So another thing that has happened is that this actually every living being is living in timelessness. So both abundance and timelessness is the way in which all living beings are existing, you know, except the modern educated human beings. Everybody is in that level. So what has happened, this is very important to inquire, but this is our state of mind now, you know. So the insecurity really comes from these two factors. And other thing that one sees is the boredom that has taken over people's lives. And today children by the age of 4 or 5 are already bored. Now boredom again is a quality that only the modern people have. That is because they are fighting against time. That's the reason. And they are doing things that they don't like to do, which makes them aware of time. Otherwise, when you're doing something that you like to do, you're not aware of time. So time makes its presence the moment you are doing things that you don't like to do. Then you're dragging, you know. So from childhood, when you force children to go to school, which they don't like anyway, uh, uh, I mean, you have to really fool them to, you know, to leave their parents, their, people who are familiar. You need really force to get them onto that. And of course, you convince them by cheating them, by, you know, blackmailing them, or by, you know, giving all kinds of things. You convince them, but that is not something that a child likes to do. So at a psychological level, there is damage. At the level of time consciousness, there is a problem, because, you know, you don't like to do what you're forced to do, you know. So there is so within the context of modernity, all these things are playing, you know. But this abundance feeling is something that the West has not understood, you know. The that we are born with the sense of abundance at a subconscious level. But at a conscious level, we are convinced that there is nothing. You're poor, you're underprivileged, you don't have anything, you have to worry about tomorrow. But as a biological being, we are born with, you know, born with this timelessness and feeling of abundance. Another very important thing is that living beings are born with the sense of freedom. It is not an anthropocentric idea of freedom. Existence is existing in, you know, things are existing in freedom, you know. So that is another thing that gets curtailed in the modern scenario, because in modernity, what you find is that that every time the parent tells no, that's the usual this thing, and the child always has to ask permission whatever they want to do, which is very rare in a rural tribal situation. A child never asks permission, and the parent never goes after the child. They are not worried where the child is, because there's a sense of trust, that they trust life, they trust everything is okay, you know. So once in a while something happen, but that can't become the default, you know. So in modernity, worry has become the default, you know. So
Yeah. So why do you say that modern parenting is over parenting?
no, actually, in traditional societies, there was no concept of parenting at all. So you can see in the last few generations how the parenting became more and more stressed, more and more worried. So that now what is happening is just over parenting, meaning you are all the time attending to the child. Everything about the child is a problem. So right from morning till evening, that is what the parent is doing. The parent is teaching. The parent is all the time worried. But actually, if you look into the modern society, what we have is actually a anti-child situation. People would like to believe that we have a child-centric, child-friendly situation, which is not true at all. Because whatever we have created for children are actually convenient for the parent and not for the child. It's a myth that it is all for child. Absolutely no. Because uh, of course there are some very wrong theories that are going around, uh, which are absolutely detrimental to a child's life. And there are of course the market trying to control people's consciousness. So these two together are actually creating a absolutely anti-child, anti-life kind of an environment, where the child is bombarded with all kinds of products, all kinds of needs, greed, all that is being cultivated very systematically by by market and by the screen and all that. So but the problem is that most parents are not aware of the damage of this modern interventions and modern health, so-called health. um, so it is extremely important at one level to create a fence around the destruction that modernity is doing to children. And at the same time, it is very important that the parent uh, kind of uh, learn to understand the true nature of his being. So it's almost like dipping back into his biological resource, that he is fundamentally a biological being equipped with knowledge. But modernity has made him depend on external experts, books and theories. And so they are responding to a theory rather than responding from their being. They are not observing the child. So fundamentally what is happening is that modern parenting is imposing whatever theory they have on a child, notion they have on a child. So they don't sit with a child or observe a child, sensitively watch what is happening. And so it's a very, that sensitivity development is completely kind of killed in the. And what is happening is that most of the gadgets that are being developed, apps and all that, are actually not for promoting a person's sensitivity. No, for simple example, that are two things. One, when a child is sleeping in the night, now the modern parents want to sleep that 8 hours, no? But a loving mother wouldn't mind not having that sleep. Because if you remember, if you can recall, that when a child is sleeping, and when you're sleeping, when you hear a smallest, slightest sound from the child, you wake up. But whatever other sound is happening, you're not waking up, no? So there is something that is constantly awake, which is ready for the child anytime. So this readiness is killed by creating all kinds of things for the child. Because when the child is sleeping, then somebody will rock the child, or to make the child to sleep. So the child is treated more like a machine. So what the child needs is human touch, human smell and all that. It's not the movement that is. So they are creating mechanical movement or all kinds of ideas. It is coming from a very destructive, distorted modern mind, which doesn't understand life. They only understand market, profit, and technology. They think technology is life, which is what they want to prove now. So it's a very destructive future that I see, full of machines, full of all kinds of gadgets, but no human life left. So that is what the promise of modern technology actually. Sensitivity is, I think, the most important thing that is important, is required. Sensitivity, intuition, insight, instinct, none of that has place today. What you have place is rationality, reasoning. In fact, in the natural cognitive paradigm system, conscious reasoning has no place at all. There's no conscious reasoning, doesn't have a place. But that has been now imposed as the way. So they have created all kinds of strange ideas about reasoning, critical thinking, systems thinking, that thinking, this thinking, now design thinking, everything rooted in thinking. In fact, that is not what is a human being. That is for a machine actually. That's good for a intelligent machine to operate. But for a human being, it is more about sensing, more about feeling, more about intuiting, that knowing things without the use of language. But this is what is completely lost in the modern mess of technology and all that. you actually missed this, you know my gadget that I've made. Look,
What is that?
gadget.
Gadget.
हाँ देखो मैंने कैसे रिकॉर्ड कर दिया,
Amazing. Oh
क्या
wow.
क्या यूज किया,
Oh.
इसको यूज करके थोड़ा ऊपर कर दिया, ये अपना वो है,
Yeah. Wow.
keep it holding, no, ये one, this one, this one, this is for holding the it's in place, so it will stay.
Fantastic.